G'day, Stu here from UAVfutures, and today, well, we're back with another question and answer video. It's Sunday, I've been out flying all day, come home, and now I'm going to jump online and look at some of your questions and hopefully provide you with some feedback or just things that you want to know about. Now, two things I want to discuss straight off the bat. Number one, I said I was going to do these question and answer videos every single week, so probably every Sunday. But what I'm really thinking is I'm probably going to be maybe moving into possibly the fortnightly sort of thing with the question and answer videos, because by the time I get home, do the video, film it, edit it, I think it was like midnight or something like that for the last one, and that makes it really difficult to go to work the next day. So I'm probably going to be moving this maybe to like two or three a month or something like that. So it might be fortnightly from now on. And the other thing before we get started with your questions, because I don't want to steer, something I do want to touch on a little bit. The other day I did a video, and I'll link it up here, to why a heavier quad goes faster, and there was a big discussion about all of that. And I just want to clarify what I was going on about, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea on what I was trying to say, and I just want to clarify those little things. But basically I was saying if you build a hyperlight quad, hang on, I'm going to go get one. Alrighty, so I'm back and I've got this one. This is a good example. This is this hyperlight twig, which is a total beast in the air. And almost so, what I was really saying is if you put a bigger, heavier battery on this thing, it's going to be easier for you to control, and it's going to be easier to move and maneuver around the course, no matter what the course is like. Even on a really, really tight track, I still think a bigger battery is going to help you, because it's going to slow you down a little bit, I guess, offer a little bit of a handicap, expo, however you want to mention that. It's going to make it a little bit easier to handle one of these bad boys, and because of that extra or easier handling, you're going to be able to get around the track a lot faster. So that was one thing that I wanted to clarify. You know, and there's a whole big discussion, but basically the heavier weight is going to be able to help you steer the quad a lot better and manage its power and make it a bit quicker for your lap times to get around the track for 99% of pilots out there anyway. Anyway, that was sort of the two things I did want to clear up. Enough rambling about that. Let's jump into the questions and find out what you guys want to know. Okay, Colton Brown, here's a good one. If you had to compromise on a component, so goggles, monitor, controller, etc., what would you spend less on? And I would probably say invest in a good radio, something like the Turnigy Evolution, or I don't think you can really beat that for the price. I really like that radio. Get a good set of goggles that you're going to use all the time, and the part I'd probably go cheap on is the quad. Not too cheap, but I wouldn't. That's probably one part. I think you can still have a great flying experience with a mediocre sort of mid-range quad. You don't have to have the best of the best. But if you've got some budget If you've got some budget goggles or something like that, that can make a big difference to your flying. And also the same goes for a radio. That can make a big difference as well. Alright, Casio Crenshaw, you've got one here. If you can take just one quad from the wall, which one would it be? And for me, it'd be the GT2 at the moment. I love its power. I like everything. Well, there's some little things I would like to change, but for me, the GT2 is what I'm having the most fun with. I think it's one of the powerhouses, one I do a lot of work with, and I put a lot of batteries through. I always love flying that one. So for me, yeah, the GT2 200. Okay, this one's from Gavin Wardrope, and he wants to know the difference. What's the actual difference between clean flight and beta flight, and why is beta flight better? And this is a really important question for a lot of people out there, because they might look exactly the same, and I don't know enough about the actual coding that goes into it, but from what I understand, the code in clean flight used to be maybe a little bit, there might have been a little few more things that it had to do, and the end result meant it was a little bit messier. And with beta flight, I think Boris B went in and sort of just cleaned up the code a lot more, and it can handle, I guess, whatever code it's going in there, it can handle what it's doing. That's like the worst explanation. But basically, it does its job as far as I'm concerned with the PID loops and everything like that. It has a much better process that it goes through to find out the correct results or whatever it's looking for, and it just works out to be a much smoother flying experience. Nitro 15K, he wants to know, would you recommend a circular polarized antenna for your Wizard? Yes. If yes, which one? So you're going to have a lot of success with like some on-way antennas, but lately I've been flying with just the little whip antennas, and I think they're great. So really, I think though this is the one I would recommend in the past. They might be going out of fashion a little bit, because for me and the type of flying that I do, I find that a little whip antenna is great. Unless you're flying with a lot of people. If you're flying with a lot of others, you might get a little bit less interference if you're using a CP antenna. Alrighty, Jonathan Thrasher. Now this is a really interesting one actually, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit. If DJI type quads can stream HD over long distances to iPhones and other mobile devices, why aren't more FPV pilots streaming HD to their goggles instead of the static looking footage we see in today's FPV cameras? And trust me, I would love some crystal clear, nice crisp HD footage to see in my goggles, but The big difference with that is at the moment we don't have the tech to stream that with low latency, so that's like a little bit of a delay in that HD footage, which is fine if you're up floating around and filming because you don't need those lightning reflexes. But when you're going through the gates at 100 kilometers per hour or 60 kilometers per hour, and you're going to be zooming along every single the smallest amount of time makes a huge difference, because if you can't see anything, if you're a little bit behind where you're actually flying, these quads can cover a lot of distance, and yeah, basically that delay makes it very, very hard to fly. All right, Kev Bar, I don't know if this is a bit of a troll question or not. Could you show me where or how to make some race gates? Yeah, sure, definitely. I'll leave this link up here to probably the best video you will ever see on the internet. And that was my very first gate making video, the very first video I ever really did helping people for UAV Futures. So there you go, that's how to make an FPV gate for $5. Go check that out. It's actually kind of embarrassing now that I look back on that, but it was fun as well. Coptermovies.com wants to know, will you ever come to Europe sometime? And all the best. Yeah, I would love to do some traveling. That would be a big dream if I could sort of take UAV Futures and head out to some big events around the world. That would be something that I would totally love to do. Discord 2000, hey Stu, why do you recommend 5-inch quads for beginners? Do you reckon 3-inch or 4-inch does less damage to its surroundings and itself in a crash? Yeah, you are going to get, I guess, less damage with that 3 or 4-inch, but a 5-inch is so versatile. You've got a little bit more room as well. I'm going to use this as an example. If you get something like this, you've got a lot more room in here to actually use when you're building. So a 5-inch has more power. You could probably still even fly it on 3S, and I think you're just going to have a better time all around. And if you want, you can also stick on a little HD recording camera like a GoPro or something like that. So that's why I think a 5-inch is a really, really good beginner quad. If you're a little bit worried about the power, yeah, you can always put it on like a 3S battery or something like that. Zachary Wheeler, you've got a question. I really think this one's going to help a lot of people out there. Stuart, can you please explain how the antenna connects to each other and work? I don't get it. People are saying there's 2 types of antennas. Love your videos. So this one might help a few people out there. Now there's a few different things we need to cover. First off, we'll talk about the connector type. So there's RP, SMA, and SMA, and all that relates to is the little pin located in here, and is there a little hole in this part, and that's how those two sort of interconnect with each other. Now RP SMA will work with RP SMA, and SMA connects to SMA, but that's got nothing to do with if they will actually talk to each other. And then you've got different antennas, like, my nose is itchy. You've got different antennas like this one right here. This is a circular polarized antenna. And this is all 5.8, so this is all talking about your video. So you've got a circular polarized antenna. I'm going to get a patch antenna. Hang on. All right, now this is a patch antenna. This is a helical antenna, and all these they're all spitting out. They're all talking the same language. They're all talking 5.8, but they do it in a different way. So this one's got a really powerful beam that it sends out a message on. This one's sort of very similar. This one, the blue one here, the circular polarized antenna, that sort of sends out a mediocre signal, or receives a mediocre signal, I guess, from all around. So really, it's all about what sort of antenna do you want and for what purpose. And most people will put one of these on their quad, so it's sending out a sort of, no matter which way the quad is facing, it's going to get a good reception all around. And on their goggles, on their headset, they'll have one of these for some general purpose flying, and a little patch antenna, and they'll point the patch in the way that they think they're going to get the most benefit out. So they've got a big strong beam, and they've also got a little circular polar, hopefully you guys can see that, a circular polarized one. So that's probably what people are talking about when you say there's 2 different types. And then to make it even more confusing, there's also left-hand polarized and right-hand polarized, but I highly doubt that that's kind of what you're getting at in the question. And if you are asking about left-hand polarized and right-hand polarized antennas work really well with other left-hand polarized antennas, and right-hand polarized work with other right-hand polarized antennas. That's the long and short of it. So try to make sure you match those up. The Wiz76, g'day from the opposite side of the world. When you first started flying, you probably crashed many times and broke a lot of gear. Wasn't this so frustrating that at some point you wanted to give up? Not really. Look, I've got a video of this somewhere, and it's probably really, really old, but it was all about why I do this, how much I love it, and just focus on those positives. There's been some days, especially when it comes to building things, and you go to put everything together, and then maybe some magic smoke comes out, or a motor fries, or you just can't get something to work, or a receiver to work, or whatever your situation is. Yeah, there's some days when it's really frustrating, but you've just got to remember, not everything can be perfect all the time. And for me, there is so much more. It's like 99% positive when it comes to quads. The amount of joy and fun and just the amount of passion I have for these things, I've never wanted to quit once. So yeah, look, there's been bad days and days when it's hard and things haven't gone my way, but that is drastically drowned by, that's not a good way to say it, but drastically drowned by all the fun I have with this hobby. So yeah, not really once have I wanted to give up. I love this hobby. Oh, Let's Fly. I saw your review of eSheen goggles. Can you power them without antennas attached and not destroying VTXs? This is a really good question, because if you're getting into the hobby, you would have heard, don't turn on your VTX without your antenna attached because it's going to explode. And look, that's very good advice. And what we're talking about, that's because the antenna on your quad, that you're putting on your quad, is spitting out the signal, so it's transmitting it, and that needs to have that all the time. But if you've got your goggles, the things that you're wearing on your head, it's okay to power those, because all they're doing is receiving. So they're not really using too much, they're not pushing anything out, so they don't need any way to dissipate that signal. They're just listening for it. So it's okay to turn your goggles on without your antennas on. Don't worry, you're not going to break anything by doing that. CPTGG, I can actually pronounce that one because that's like some letters. Thanks for the video. I'm paraphrasing this part. I have a question. What would be a quick reference in case the police start harassing you? I would just say be honest, be open about what you're doing, and do whatever the police say. If the police tell you to move on, that's what you should be doing. In my experience, I'm always like, hey guys, do you want to have a look? And they just want to ask some questions, and I usually pick up a quad and show it to them and have a little bit of a chat. And once they know what we're doing, then they don't really seem to have any issues whatsoever. Tanker31, how do you keep so many lipos organized? And basically, when I come home, there's like a big empty box, toolbox, whatever, and I've got them all in there. Put them all into storage charge, and so I've got another space for storage charge. And then when the day before I go flying, I charge them all up from storage charge and put them in another toolbox, and that's the toolbox that I take out with me to fly. So it's pretty simple. I've got 3 boxes, one to be charged, one at storage charge, and then another box when they're fully charged. So that's how I keep all mine sorted. Rusty Moustache, what are your favorite motors to use? Have you thought about trying Mr. Steele's motors? Favorite motors, I like I used Emax red bottoms for the longest of time. I love the Edge 2205, 2480 kV. The DYS Fire motors are some really good ones. And have I thought about trying Mr. Steele's motors? Yeah, I would happily stick them on a set. Maybe not a racing quad, but definitely something that I wanted a really smooth or a gentle sort of, maybe something for acro or some filming. I think that'd be a fantastic motor to use. So he's like a very knowledgeable dude, and he's put a lot of work into designing those motors. So I think they'd perform very, very well. But I haven't tested them. That's just from what I hear anyway. Peter Wu, do you clean your quad after every session? I have to wash the motors out every time I crash into the wet ground. Well, I try not to fly when it's too wet, and not really. Like, if I emptied my quads, I've got a bag of them over there because I've just been flying all day, and if I emptied those out, there would be like grass all through them, all this sort of dried bits of leaves and all those sorts of things. So not really. If I did crash into mud, I probably would try to clean it out as best as I could. But for the most part, I think these things are really, really tough. So if it's wet, different story. But yeah, for the most part, I never really clean my quad. Okay, so I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name. SJORSIKDUS. Scorchus, that's probably just a bunch of random letters, or maybe it's your name, I don't know. But do you listen to music when you fly? Sometimes, like it's a little bit different. It's sort of, usually I'm way too focused on something, or I'm trying to do some filming and there's a whole bunch of different things going on. Sometimes I have gone out and I've got like a little boombox sort of thing that I push play on. I need to put some new music on there actually, but yeah, most of the time I fly without music, but it is also really, really cool to fly when music's on there. So especially for acro. For racing, I don't think it makes that much of a difference, but if you're doing some acro and you go out and put some music on, I really think it can make a difference to not only how you fly, but also how you're feeling when you're flying around. George Downing, how many hours have you spent flying in total? PS, I love your channel. Thanks, man. That's a nice thing to say. I'm glad you're enjoying it because I'm loving doing it. Flying in total, well, I've been flying for about 2 years now. I started off, I had like 5 or 8, not very many 3S batteries, and I was flying those as often as I could. So it's thousands of lipos. So that's a really hard answer, a really hard question to answer because I don't really know, but I would say, I don't know, 1,000 lipos, 1,500 lipos, so whatever that is, let's say an average of 3 minutes, so 3,000 minutes. What's that in hours? I don't know. I feel like I'm on a math show here, but yeah, I'd say a fair while anyway. Anthony Tripcioni, how often do you come across a venomous snake while flying? Sounds like a few of you guys want to know that one as well. Not too often, maybe like three times in like 2 years, but you often hear someone go out and say, oh, there's a snake over there, or they just saw a snake, or Grumpy Trevor let us know, or something like that. So look, it's more you try to not go where they are, so you're very, very careful when you're walking around. Oh, Mitch Mama Miak Mitch Micah Mama Micah Mama, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Am I going to teach my kid to fly? Look, if my kid's interested in doing this stuff, that would be amazing. I would love to teach my son or daughter, take them out there and fly around. I also want to teach my wife as well, because she keeps asking about it, so that's something that I'd love to do as well. Okay, Mr. Light Chaos, do you recommend buying good props when you're learning, or get cheap with all the crashing you're going to be doing? I would say get some like Dell props. They don't have to be the Dell Cyclones, which actually, just get some good props, because especially some of the durable ones like the Dell, or some of their indestructibles, they fly really, really well. And the bonus is, if they break, you can just bend them sort of back into shape. So that's my tip. Don't skimp out if you're buying the props, because you'll find yourself replacing them a lot more. Get some decent props out there. They're not really that expensive anyway. You're going to have a much better flying experience, and they're going to last a lot more in your crashes. You're not going to have to be taking them off and changing them all the time. Like, I think I changed 2 sets out today, and I definitely had a few crashes out there. So there was many times when my quad was able to keep on flying, and I didn't have to change the props. So yeah, if you're just getting into the hobby, spend up a little bit on maybe like 10 sets of the props that are going to be the right ones for you, but don't skimp out on them. Oh, Richard Burgess, he says, I could use a better light on my workbench. Can you tell me about the LED arc that you're using? Now, this was something that I made from leftover parts and like $3 at the hardware shop, and this is really easy. So all it is, I've got this little, I think if I can get it off here, it's like a little plastic strip. I think this was like something that holds the window or the fly screen in somewhere in the hardware store. It's just a long bendy bit of plastic. I put a little 12-volt LED strip down the middle, and then I just put 2 little sort of adapters on my bench. They're just bits of wood screwed down with 2 screws in them. And then I've got an old power supply rigged up, so I just plug that in and boom. So that's how I use all the lighting on my bench. Really, really cheap. Maybe it's under $10 anyway, except for the power supply. So very, very easy. And that's another, I wouldn't have been able to do that without this experience I've got from quads. So really, really cool to sort of cross over your hobbies and put some things that you've learned in another area outside of quads. So that's the LED bar that I'm using. Gerald Serona, hi Stu, I learned a lot from your videos. Thanks for posting. I have a question. You usually mention that you go through 30 to 40 lipos per session. How do you manage to charge so many batteries? And I'm getting a few questions about batteries actually, and that's because I use the Q200 charger. You can check that out up here. That can charge 4 batteries at once. I've got so that's 4 of them going. There is a parallel board, but I don't use that anymore too much. I've got a second little cheap charger down there, so that's 5. And I've got a totally different one that charges just my Fat Shark batteries. So I don't do any of my Fat Sharks on these 5. You can hear the rain outside, it's absolutely pouring down. And then because they're all in storage charge, it's really, really quick. So it might take like 30 minutes to do 4. So I'm doing, what's that? That's like 8 batteries an hour. So it doesn't really take too long. Look, it's going to take a couple of hours, but it's more than manageable. And I usually just put them off when I'm doing some other work in this room anyway. Put them on when I'm doing some other work in this room anyway. So it's not too bad if they're at storage charge. Everron Leety, sorry, I've mispronounced that. But you want to know which gate size and height and width do you recommend to race for a newbie? I fly more. I've flown for more than a year, but just cruising around. I want to make some gates to improve my skills. That's a massive thing you can do to get better. I found gates were one of the biggest, I guess, jumps in my progression of flying. As soon as I started putting the gates out, I had something to aim for rather than just sort of floating around aimlessly. I think 5 foot by 5 foot is what a lot of people use. So that's a pretty standard common measurement in a lot of places out there. So yeah, just go 5 foot by 5 foot. Christopher Rumba, would you ever consider getting a tattoo of a quadcopter? Yeah, maybe. I guess nowhere where people could see it. It'd have to be somewhere as a bit of a joke. Something, it'd be very, very small. I wouldn't be getting any neck quad tattoo, but maybe that'd be something pretty funny actually, yeah. I don't know. Probably no, but I'm not going to totally rule it out. Dead Soil Drones, how are you planning your hobby in 5 years? I understand you're becoming a dad soon, so how will you teach and treat your knowledge? Soldering with 3, flying with 4, world champion with 12? No, I think that's sort of like a two-part question. In terms of 5 years, I really want to be doing this stuff full-time. I want to be making as much content with you and maybe finding some other ways to interact and help promote this community, this hobby, and get as many people into it as I can. And I think that's like one of the big reasons why I've got such a strong support over at Patreon, and all the fantastic members over there that really believe in what I'm trying to do and we're all trying to do together. In terms of the channel, I think it'll be a lot more content, hopefully have like a different studio, maybe working with some other people, a little bit like Flight Test. They're a big inspiration for me. Regarding my child, I guess, soldering with 3, flying with 4, I'd probably be flying first, just getting them maybe some little fun quads. If they're into it, I wouldn't push it on them, if at all. If they think that dad's really daggy and just hanging out with some drones and those sorts of things, I'm never going to force my kids to do anything they don't want to do. But regarding to soldering, I think, yeah, I don't, maybe like 5 years old, as crazy as that is, but I think children can be safe, and if you teach them the ways to be safe and do it with them and those sorts of things, that's a totally good skill to be learning. Obviously, you have to be really careful and risk assess and all that sort of stuff. Regarding world champion and at 12, that's totally up to them. If they love it and that's where their path takes them, that's fine. But I'm never going to say, hey, you've got to be putting in these packs or today's training days or anything like that. For me, this hobby's all about fun and loving it, and if that's what my kids want to do, that'll be the best way that I can support them anyway. Now this will probably be the last one because it is coming up to dinner time again, and tonight we've got like a potato bake and also some like pork. Anyway, it's going to be awesome. That's in the oven. Computerized cat. I like your little symbol there of some kitty, but air mode or idle up, and why? I just put air mode on, and I think like I used to just have idle up all the time, and then I put air mode on, and do I find that much of a difference? Not really. Still seems to fly the same for what I'm doing and the type of track flying that I like. So I just find whatever works for you. I think that's one of those things that people get really nitpicky about, that overall doesn't really change your flying experience that much. If you're doing a lot of inverts and a lot of hangs and those times when you're not really putting any throttle in, definitely go with air mode because that might make a difference to your flying. But for me, I found it barely changed it, if so at all. Very, very small differences. I do use air mode because I do think it's better to have that control than not have it. And yeah, so that's why I use air mode, but really they pretty much feel the same to me anyway. Anyway, hopefully you guys like that Q&A. If you've got some questions for like next week, or I guess next episode's Q&A, because I don't know if it's going to be next week, but so I want to try and make it like a 2-weekly sort of thing, but definitely drop those in the comments below. And if you see someone else's question, definitely give that a thumbs up as well, because that helps it push it to the top, because there's a ton of comments in here, and sometimes it's a little difficult to find them all, and I don't want to miss any of them. So if there's one that you want to know, definitely give that a thumbs up as well. But other than that, subscribe for more FPV related content, and as always, happy flying. Alrighty, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. Definitely subscribe if you're new to the channel and check out these videos. And I'm also going to leave a little link here to my Patreon page, because I've got some fantastic Patreon supporters and I like to give back to them as well. So if you want to join the UAVfutures family, there's things like bonus Velcro straps, little bundles of FPV goodies and things like that that also get sent out. Anyway, happy flying.